Hello, my name's Lauren and this is my psychology presentation. My student number is 233999043 and my presentation is on Bronfenbrenner. So this is just a short introduction to his life so we get a bigger picture. So Yuri Bronfenbrenner was born in Moscow in 1917. He moved to America when he was about 6 years old. He got a bachelor's in music and psychology as well as a master's in education. He had a PhD in developmental psychology and served as a military psychologist in World War II. He was also an assistant professor in the University of Michigan, as well as he was a professor of human development in Cornell. He was a founder of the Federal Head Start program and he died in 2005 in New York, aged 88. Just a brief rundown of his work and theories just before we get into the main theory of his ecological systems. So his ecological systems theory was actually invented in 1979. He had a book that came out called Making Human Beings Human in 2004, and he also had another book called The Ecology of Human Development, which came out in 1981. Yuri Bronfenbrenner was known for his theory of ecological systems, which is shown on the screen now. I created the diagram on the right, which corresponds to the systems on the left by colour. This is a circular system which shows the influential, interconnected relationships which surround a child. This theory is surrounded by multiple systems, the first of which being the microsystem, which involves the immediate environment, which affects the child directly, such as the parents, the friends, and school. The mesosystem, which is shown in blue, mentions the relationships between the different systems, such as parent-teacher relationships or friends in school. The exosystem, which is shown in green, impacts the child's environment indirectly, such as mass media or school board decisions. The macrosystem, which is shown in orange, shows the overarching systems which influence other systems, such as the economy or religion or culture. The chronosystem, which is shown in pink, is a theory of time, so time adds depth into the whole ecological system. This is how the theory of ecological systems relates to the field of education. Educators must realise the relationships which may affect the students' education, such as mass media, friends, family and culture. By recognising the chronosystem of time, an educator must realise the ever-changing relationships that a student has and how learning may not be consistent because of these changes. In some places, the macrosystem might affect the way in which an educator teaches. For example, some cultures might teach differently based on their religion or economic status. Now, I'm just going to quickly go over how this theory has contributed to our understanding of human growth and development. By looking at this theory, we can understand the levels of how an environment affects a child or person. We have a clear visual on recognising roles and levels in society. We can recognise and help child development by looking at relationships, environments, as well as relationships between these environments. Looking at development through time, the chronosystem mentions this in his theory, and all ecosystems need time in order to develop. Now looking into a few criticisms of this theory. Each criticism which is on the left has a corresponding theorist which assists these criticisms on the right, as you can see in the picture. I find that nature versus nurture isn't considered. Bronfenbrenner's theory doesn't look at what traits that the children are born with or how they're raised. This theory does not mention how to improve or build on these relationships. And in my opinion, this theory is very environmental and doesn't really focus on the child's changes within the chronosystem. This theory is a little bit too broad and lacks mentioning a child's cognitive functions and development. My criticisms of this theory have led me to look at other theorists and see how they can assist. Theorist Skinner looks at nature versus nurture and looks at responsive behaviourism. John Bowlby's attachment theory mentions how these relationships can be improved through emotional bonds and how to feed and fuel these relationships. American psychologist Judith Harris looks at the ever-changing relationships in a person or child's life. Piaget's theory of cognitive development also expands on a child's interaction with their environment and how it shapes their cognitive development. Now we're on to the last slide and we're looking at how this theory can assist my teaching practice. This theory helps me understand student relationships and it will make my classroom a more inviting environment and students will want to learn. I will strengthen relationships with parents and teachers, which builds trust and enforces expectations within the classroom. I'm going to use this theory in my placement by bridging gaps between parent-teacher relations by keeping contact with them through the school journal or parent-teacher meetings. I will be encouraging creativity as well as creating a safe space for students where they can speak their mind. In order to help students relate to these themes, I can bring them into the classroom through EOLs and create different artistic projects. I can be a guide or a mentor to these students over their 6 years in secondary school and keeping in mind all of these systems which may affect them. Thank you for watching a reading. Happy Christmas.